Can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to...
Here we go. It is episode 12 of the Red, White, and Crew podcast. Thank you for joining us today as we look at our knockout stage bracketology edition. So God help us. We're going to have some fun with this. But before we dive into any of that, I want to tell you guys about our great title sponsor, our proud partners in Goal Getter. This episode is brought to you by Goal Getter, a recruiting education platform built to help female soccer student athletes and their families navigate the path to college soccer. The process can feel overwhelming, especially when families don't fully understand the recruiting landscape. Goal Getter provides the education, tools, and guidance families need to navigate the recruiting landscape and make informed decisions. To learn more information on Goal Getter, you can visit them at their website at GoalGetter. That's GOLGETR.com. Again, that's GOLGETR.com. And you can also find them both on Instagram and X at GoalGetter. That's GOLGETR Soccer, GoalGetter Soccer, to learn more. Gentlemen, what's going on? We get our bracketology going with one official knockout round in the books. And if you are watching us live, do not adjust your sets because this is the whole crew. This is the whole official crew here, at least finally. It took the knockout rounds to get everybody, but happy to be here. Glad to have you guys on here. How's everybody doing? Let's go around the horn. How's everyone?
We're good, man.
Life is good, guys. Life is good.
I was at a Colombian watch party last night.
Oh, no.
And that was insane. It was already an insane game, but when you're with like 250 Colombians watching that game, it just makes it even crazier. So, it was insane when they scored it, and then equally sad when they called it back.
Any stories you can tell on the air that you can share?
They did, like at halftime, they brought in like the traditional like girls in like the long dresses and the headdresses, and they were doing like dances and stuff like halftime. So it was a good time. It was a good time.
You had a fancy shindig. So
Yeah.
good deal. Rafa, I know you were, the last time we were all together here, you weren't able to join us. How are things, man? Oh, is he muted? I think he's muted. I think you're muted, buddy. All right, well, he unmutes himself. Aaron, Mike, how are you guys?
We're good, man.
Yeah.
Things are good here.
Yeah.
Ready for these multiple days of games again. I thought we were going to get a break, but no break. Let's roll.
Yeah, I know. I thought I saw that somewhere in the schedule where I thought today was the day off, but I guess not. I guess not.
Is it coming up in between rounds? Is that what there's going to
I got to look at it again because obviously what I looked at was not correct. So there's definitely going to be somewhere in there once we start getting into, I don't know if it's what round of 16, definitely probably after that. There's got to be for sure there's a break in there somewhere.
I mean, my bracket behind me says we're going all the way through 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. It looks like July 8th will be our break.
When? July 8th?
July 8th, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then
So,
9th,
okay.
10th, 11th are the quarters.
So 4th of July is the weekend, so that's halfway into the next week, the following week.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're going to go about another, 10, 12 days, 13 days with straight, more football, more soccer. So I love it. So thoughts on, before we dive into the bracketology piece, first match in the books, Canada and South Africa. What do you guys think?
What was to be expected, I think. I know some people were hoping for Bafana, but
I just didn't expect anything. I mean, it kind of played out the way I was thinking it was going to. You can make the argument Canada should probably had 2 or 3 goals, but we've been saying that about Canada, so pretty interesting, right? So they could not find the back of the net. I thought you go back to the Mexico match. I thought South Africa, showed themselves extremely well, all things considered. So,
Yeah.
And to give it away in the 92nd minute, that's rough.
can't head it back to the middle of the field like that.
Nope. So Thoughts on that, Brian Elias?
No, to quote my good friend Zlatan, in the first half, I almost fell asleep. In the second half, I did fall asleep.
Yeah, I made it about 70, 75 minutes through that game. Wish I had finished it with the end, but
It's why you got to bet on him. Keeps you locked in and engaged the whole
yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Manufacturer interest.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, Canada, you could tell was a little bit better in the first half. But, South Africa did enough to keep it interesting. They had that goal line save, I think, right before halftime or maybe right after halftime.
Yeah.
It seemed like they may find a way to get a result, but you could kind of tell what was coming. You just didn't really know if the floodgates were going to open or if they were going to keep it tight the whole way. But
Right.
pretty uneventful match, I think, unfortunately, to start the round of 32. But I do think it hurt Canada having to come to the U.S., and not getting to play. But win your group, and then you have nothing to complain about. So
Something was being reported out there. I don't know if it was from Jesse Marsh, coaching staff, or one of the players. I thought it sounded like it might have been unofficially Jesse Marsh, but that somebody felt, or somebody was mentioning that they felt that it might actually help be to their benefit, right? Getting away from Canada because of the pressure, how they were playing very tight, right? So I don't know. I guess every country is different. You talk about the experience level of the players, right? And how Jesse Marsh handles things. Kind of hard to say, but I did see it was reported that it was the least expensive, I think the least expensive ticket up to this point. I think you could get in there today in SoFi for under $300.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. That's,
listen, if Jesse Marsh said it, it would have been in front of a camera. He's not shy to not get in front of camera and talk. Like after the game, just let the camera in your post-game huddle so you can hear you guys talking about how everyone is a Canadian hero.
yeah. Good deal. So anyway, all right. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna dive in, man. So we are here to discuss the show, Bracketology show. So we're gonna look at the knockout stage. So what we did, right, was we went through the group stage and then kind of submitted our initial brackets all the way through the knockout rounds. But now that the knockout, obviously, teams have changed, things have changed, and now that we have more information, we're gonna go through. We're gonna dive through. We're gonna briefly have everyone talk about their bracket, highlight whatever they want to highlight, mention it, and then we'll wrap up. So trying to keep this one definitely under an hour. But like I said, anything and everything that we need to discuss, want to discuss, this is why we're here today. So, all right. So we first look at what does it look like, right? So round of 32, 16 and 16. When we look at it, we've been talking about this for the last couple of days now as it was starting to kind of take shape. But the thoughts on, and Elias, when Elias and I were talking about it, excuse me, earlier, it had just dawned on me maybe half an hour earlier because I was so busy looking at matchups that I didn't step back and take a look at the big picture of the South American teams, right? Elias, tell me your thoughts on that when you look at the bracket.
yeah, I mean, it does look like on the left-hand side, you have the UEFA heavyweights. You have Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, France, Germany, and then on the right-hand side of the bracket, you have the South American heavyweights with Brazil, Argentina, obviously, but then Colombia and Ecuador are in there as well. So, I think we're going to have a UEFA CONMEBOL final. I don't know that, especially I'm just not sold on England to be able to get out of that side. And then on the left-hand side, you would have to think that it's going to be a UEFA nation, unless, obviously, unless the United States goes and pulls it off. But I don't know that you want to play a South American country right now with the way that they're all playing. It's an interesting. It's going to be. There's probably some continental bragging rights on the table here as well, and I would imagine that that's kind of being talked about in these camps as well.
Right. Rafa, we were talking about it before we went live, but you look at that upper right quadrant, right, where Mexico resides, and they get a tough challenge right out of the gate in Ecuador. So Azteca or no Azteca, they're going to have a tough path, right? So, what are your thoughts when you look at that first round matchup versus Ecuador, but then also going forward? What are your thoughts looking at that quadrant?
I think the big thing is if can Ecuador show up as far as offense. I know they scored 2 on Germany, but they've been struggling offensively. And they're not one of those teams that can score goals. Well, not so granted Mexico hasn't done up, but they've done enough to get by. I think Mexico has enough to kind of get them. But like I said, it's that group's tough. You got Brazil, you got a real disciplined Japan. Ivory Coast is probably one of those dangerous teams. I think if I'm Norway, I keep an eye on them. I think their speed and their physicality might take a little toll on them. That's going to be a fun one. And then I know England's a heavy favorite with Congo, but you never know what that could happen there. So that's a real tough con right there for Mexico to kind of. So they're gonna have to beat some if they want to get to quarterfinals, semifinals. They're gonna have to beat some elite teams on the way.
Yeah, and one of the other things here that stands out too, because what's not on here, but we'll have to start to pay attention to closely is the weather, right? Over the course of the next week, I know we got a serious heat wave, heat index coming. They're talking about what sub-Saharan deserts or sub-Saharan dust and what have you over the next couple of days as well. So the impact that might have on teams that are used to playing in more controlled, I guess, a better climate settings, if you will. Who's playing indoors in the indoor stadiums versus who's playing outdoors and location? Will that have an impact on the European teams? Will that favor on the right side of the bracket the South American teams, right? Or maybe some of the AFCON teams that we've mentioned as well, right? So that will be interesting. And what will that show? Will that kind of rear its ugly head in maybe the last 15 to 20 minutes of a match potentially as well? So Brian, your thoughts when you look at this as a whole? What kind of gets your attention when you look at we break this down into quadrants, right? What kind of gets your attention?
I think the fact that you take some of the big teams and you kind of separate all of them. You have Brazil and Mexico and England all in that top quadrant on the left side. Then you've got Argentina in the bottom left. You've got Spain in the bottom right. Then with Germany and France. So I mean, it's kind of setting up where most experts will believe you're going to have your top games in your semifinals. But I'm still of the belief that with this being a tournament in the Western Hemisphere, there's going to be some weird things that are going to happen. There's going to be some upsets, and I think we're going to see. I think we're just getting buckled up for a fun World Cup because now the real tournament begins.
Yeah, Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at that side of the bracket with all the UEFA sides on it, like that is it. It just sets up for a really fun tournament. I just when I look at it, right, as you said, Brian, there's going to be upsets and whatnot, but you kind of the fan you'd love to see some of those heavyweights go and make some noise and get some of those big matchups later on down the line.
Wes?
Yeah, I think looking at these brackets and going, I think the most exciting game I'm for in the round of 16 is that Mexico-England game if both of them get there. I mean, you're talking about England having to play outside at Estadio Azteca and try to win where it's so hard to win. What have they won, like 9 games there in a row? Or I think I saw something like that about 9 games maybe at the World Cup where they won in Estadio Azteca. So it's a tough road. I mean, Brazil, that first game, Brazil-Japan, is going to be tricky for them as well. There's a lot of history between those two teams. I don't know. I don't think this is as clear and cut and dry as a lot of people are thinking. Like, oh, now here we're on to the next round. All of these teams who haven't looked good are now going to turn it on. So I think there's a lot to watch for. A lot of excitement.
Right. Yeah, you look at that. We keep talking about the right side of the bracket, right? And I mean, those first 4 matches move from the top to bottom, right? Brazil, Japan, Ivory Coast, Norway, Mexico, Ecuador, England, and then DR Congo. I mean, none of those are gimmies. You could see a bunch of different things, bunch of different scenarios playing out in all of those. And you flip it in comparison to the bottom half, right, of that side of the bracket, a little different, right? You look at kind of Australia, Egypt, which is kind of maybe a toss. Argentina, obviously, going to be overwhelmingly heavy favorites versus the Cinderella up to this point. Switzerland and Algeria, kind of make of that what you will, right? That's kind of the ones that kind of have you scratching your heads at time. And then a very, very solid, a very strong Colombia squad that showed itself well versus Portugal yesterday against a Ghana. I kind of have Ghana, Ecuador, and Ivory Coast and Senegal. Those four kind of in that same boat of, man, be careful what you wish for in getting them in the first round, right? You do not want to necessarily see them. So a little interesting there when we look at that. So we look at the left side, Elias. Anything in particular kind of getting your attention the more you've looked at this?
Yeah, I mean, I think matchups are huge in all of these games, right? So, when you get into a round of 16, I know that France is the overwhelming favorite, and everyone, they look at that front four, and I'm sure we'll go through the brackets here, and I can talk about by bracket, but that France Germany game more than likely in the round of 16. I don't think that's not straightforward at all. I mean, you could in other World Cups that could very easily be a semifinal match, right? So, I think that Netherlands Morocco, that's another one that's going to kind of decide the way that the tournament goes. And I think what people you kind of have to start thinking about is each winner changes the next round, just and not necessarily because one team is stronger than another team, right? Like, a Cape Verde somehow beats Argentina. Yes, that changes everything. But, if you get to a quarterfinal and France is having to play the Netherlands versus having to play Morocco, that those are two completely different games. Whereas I think, against the Netherlands, you're probably going to get straight up. You think France is probably going to get 3 or 4 goals in that, and then it's can the Netherlands keep up scoring wise. Against Morocco, you're probably going to get a 1-0, 2-1 game. So something to be looking as we go through are the matchups and the styles that we see in each of these subsequent rounds.
Yeah, and then the play too, right? The fair play that we talk about. So
Yeah.
yellows, right? Yellows won't zero out again until after the quarterfinals, right? So something to think about as well. That's a clean slate, but something to think about as well in terms of some of the teams that obviously tend to rely on or play more physical, and then of course how will the officials officiate the matches as well. So all right, so we're going to dive in. We're going to look at everyone's respective brackets, kind of take you through the majority of it that speaks for itself, but we're looking at mine. So I'm already down one, both myself and the future coach of South Korea and Brian Heyman, right, going with Bufana over Canada. But I stick by my picks. I was still very impressed with South Africa and that match. I thought that match was headed to, at a minimum, extra time, if not penalties. So, but good for Canada. Happy for them. So heading through here, so we look at obviously having Germany, France advancing, the Netherlands over Morocco. That's a big one. I mean, it's a tough one, but I did it anyway. Obviously, don't look past Croatia. Could throw a serious monkey wrench in all of this, right? So we know that. Spain should be able to handle Austria. I know United States, U.S. has their hands full with Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then I'm going Senegal over Belgium. I think a Belgium team that, they put 5 in their last match over New Zealand. Still not impressed with them. Still think they look old. Still think they look slow, and still think they're very boring. So moving in, that's my left side of the bracket going into the round of 16. Germany, France. With France advancing, the Netherlands advancing, and Spain over Portugal in what should be a classic match, and the U.S. over Senegal. So I think I was talking with Wes last night. I felt like over the last year, the U.S. has scheduled their friendlies extremely well, right? So something to think about strategically. And then with advancing to the semifinals, France over the Netherlands and Spain, of course. And then from there, I have Spain over France. So one of the things that I looked at is kind of what you were alluding to a little bit, Elias, is France, I think, is the easy pick. They've been, I think, up to now, the most dominant team, right? The most impressive team. But when I look at this closely, every bit of me started thinking, okay, maybe I need to pick France based upon what we've seen over Spain, and knowing that, hey, we don't have Spain is battling some injuries. We don't have a definitive answer on Nico Williams. Will he even be match fit? Will he even be available? But the other thing too is, as I look at this, I look at the path of Spain, and I look at the path of France. That's a lot they're going. Do they have the talent? Do they have the depth? Yes, but you still have to get lucky along the way, right? Someone is going to, so to go from a Paraguay that's going to throw the, or I'm sorry, to go from a Sweden that's going to give them some, some challenges, to a Germany, to a Netherlands, and then now you get Spain, right? I felt like that path might be a little too much, but if anybody could do it, it would be them. And then on the other side, I did have I have Japan advancing along with Norway, Mexico, England, Argentina, Egypt, and Switzerland, and Colombia. But it took every. I'm not sold. I still believe I'm not sold on Brazil. Still, I am not. Are they getting better? Yes, but I feel like Japan. It took every ounce of me not to pick either Japan or Ivory Coast coming out of here into the quarterfinals. But I feel like they're going to throw one of those two are going to throw a monkey wrench in here. Uh, as much as I wanted to pick Mexico originally over England, one of the teams that I feel that has actually taken me aback a good bit in this tournament has surprised. Probably the biggest I've ever been on them has been England. Right, they got multiple weapons that are arising outside of Harry Kane. All right, Jude Bellingham is probably in his best form, is in his Real Madrid form from his first season there. Right, he's playing well. He's holding that midfield down, and they look very different from a Gareth Southgate England as well. Right, Tuchel has them playing, I think, very underrated. They're not getting enough talk up to this point, which I think is exactly what they want. And then we have Argentina and Colombia in the quarterfinals, and I have Colombia. I have Colombia maybe pulling off the big one over Argentina. It's someone that they know extremely well. Obviously, in CONMEBOL, they have the weapons. They've looked extremely well, and I think they could make it ugly enough to where Argentina could struggle. But I have a semifinals of France, Spain, England, Colombia, with Spain and England advancing to the final, and Spain emerging as the champion. So, all right, so we'll move on. So, Elias, take us through yours.
Yeah, I think mine. I have a lot of interesting picks on here that I think casuals may not agree with, but on the left hand side, I think Germany and France are going to win their first games. I think that's pretty straightforward. I did pick Canada. I have Morocco making a semifinal run. There's just something about that team that I think that in a knockout stage is going to be extremely hard to deal with. Portugal over Croatia, Spain over Austria, U.S. over Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then Senegal over Belgium. I too am not sold on Belgium. I think that Senegal has the legs to really hurt them. And then from there, I think that Germany has enough to shut down France. I just that front four, and I was telling my friends, if France went to more traditional, where they, maybe they only play with three of their amazing nine forwards, right? Then I would feel a lot better. But I just don't think that in today's game you can get away with four players that aren't necessarily, and not that any of them are lazy, minus General Mbappe. But I don't think you would ever be like, man, these guys are just out of possession, monsters. So I just think that Germany as a whole has a great system built up to withstand what France is going to throw at them, and they have enough in transition to hurt them. That France Norway game, even against the backups, I think was pretty even. Like, um, you know, besides Dembele having those three amazing goals, and they are amazing, but run of play, does he hit those three goals consistently? And I think he's capable of it, right? But, I don't think he's going to do it every single game. Morocco advancing over Canada. I think whoever wins the Netherlands over and, out of the Netherlands and Morocco is probably going to move on to the quarterfinals. Spain over Portugal. I think, last night showed that Portugal has some balance issues as well. The U.S. over Senegal, and then I think Spain has too much for the U.S. to be able to get them, as much as I would love that. And then Morocco again, they're kind of my Cinderella run here. I see them getting back to the semifinal again, and then Spain moving on to the final. the reason I picked Spain, and I know a lot of people are talking about how they're not, and we talk about score lines, and people see all the goals that France is scoring, and all the goals that Spain is not scoring. But I think, and I went through and I did some calculations because I kind of wanted to see does the data back up what I'm seeing, and Spain. 5 goals to 0 allowed. Over 3 games, they allowed 0.46 xG. It was the lowest by far. They had 775 receptions in the final third. I think that they were dominant, and I think in tournament play, I would think that, even with their injuries, I think overall their legs are probably the freshest out of everybody. On the right-hand side, I'm also not sold on Brazil. I think Japan gets that one. I think Norway over the Ivory Coast. I think that we shall see how that played out for Norway resting all their players. Ecuador, this one was a toss-up for me. I think it's definitely going to be very hard to go into the Azteca. But if any team is prepared for that kind of environment, it would be an Ecuador or Colombia. Also, I know that they haven't been super threatening going forward, but against Germany, we saw both fullbacks playing as wingers. So do they continue with that? If they do, I think that they have a little bit more than Mexico does, even with the home field advantage added in. England over the Democratic Republic of Congo. Argentina over Cabo Verde, Egypt over Australia. I think those are straightforward. Switzerland over Algeria, and Colombia over Ghana. And then as we move on, Norway over Japan. I think Japan's run ends in the round of 16. I just think that there's something about this Norway team that is interesting to me. Ecuador over England. I think what's going to end up hurting England is they don't have any more right backs. They are out of right backs. So Reece James is, I think, set to miss, the next several rounds. And I think that could come back to hurt them. Argentina over Egypt, Colombia over Switzerland. Argentina over Colombia in what I think is going to be one of the games of the tournament. But there's this Argentina team, they just seem so together. Just everything about it just seems like they have the right balance of, we know who our main man is, we don't care that he doesn't really defend, and then we're all, they just have 10 monsters behind it that just are going to die for the team. And then Ecuador getting the semifinals, Spain, Argentina. In the final, I think Spain pulls it out, and then Morocco over Ecuador in the third place game between, two dark horse picks. So,
yeah, good stuff. Yeah, a lot of interesting tidbits in there. And we talked about what stood out to me yesterday. We talked about yesterday's matches. Portugal, Colombia played to win. Portugal played content with a draw, So kind of disappointing there. So, all right, we move on. So, all right. There we go. Wes, take us through your bracket. Point out some key games, key thoughts on here.
All right, you're going to have to sit tight and let me explain because I know everybody looks at it and they're like, yeah, right, USA. But let's just go through it, all right? Germany and France, they're both going to get to the next round. I do think that Paraguay could cause some issues for Germany, but I think they just have too much firepower to overcome it. Same thing with France. I mean, Sweden may try to run a low block against them, but again, France has the firepower with anybody that can score, and especially if they're getting goals from Doué as well. It's just too much. I did pick Canada to beat South Africa. Thank you, Canadians, for helping me win $100 today. I appreciate that. And then we got underneath that, Netherlands. Netherlands, to me, outside of France, looked like the most well put together attacking team. I think Somerville, the way he has been coming in and getting goals for them, started in the first game, did well, then he's come off the bench. And then you've got Bromby, who was scoring goals as well when he came in the second game. There's just a lot of firepower on that team, I think, to make a run. That's why you see them heading out against France and Netherlands. Schmeichel said it today, is Jesse Marsch going to say the same thing after they lose 6-0 to the Dutch? So we'll see how that goes for them. Portugal, Croatia, I think is a sneaky game. That Croatia could cause issues, but I'm going to go with Portugal in that one. Spain, Austria. Spain's going to take care of that, no issue. Then you've got USA over Bosnia Herzegovina, and it looks like we're having a theme here with Senegal over Belgium, because I don't think any of us are convinced with the age of Belgium that they're going to do anything remotely well in the knockout rounds. So you've got that, and then we can move on. We got France, Netherlands on that side. Spain I think that'll be a great game between Spain and Portugal, and then USA, Senegal, which we've already played them right before the World Cup. I think the game's going to look a lot different than what it looked like before the World Cup, because you got both teams will stay at full strength most of the game instead of subbing off at halftime. And so then we've got France, Netherlands, Spain, USA. Okay, so I think France wins that battle against the Netherlands, and I think it's going to be an all-offensive game. I could see that game going like 4-3, maybe even going into extra time and playing out like we've seen some of the other games they've had in late rounds, maybe even going to PKs. The Spain-USA game. So I know Elias talked about all of his things that he was saying about Spain and how they've defended and they haven't given up a goal. My question is, yeah, but who in the world did they play? All right. Like, you played Cape Verde, who is the Cinderella. That was a 0-0 game. Cape Verde gets through as the second place team in that group, right? And they get through after drawing 3 games.
Hey, you got one person that agrees with you here.
See, I know, I love it. We got some people. So you've got Spain now playing Cape Verde, tying 0-0. That was the biggest shock of them all. They play Saudi Arabia and do what they should have done against Saudi Arabia. And then they play arguably probably one of the most worst Uruguayan teams we've ever seen at a World Cup level, and with the chaos that they had, and that game was 1-0. So I'm just not sold on Spain, especially with all of the issues that they have and the injuries they have. And if you're telling me that the U.S. makes it to the quarterfinals to go play up against a Spain team that's not at full strength, I'm going to take the U.S. in that game. And then to explain the semifinal pick, if we've got us all the way in the semifinals, France and Netherlands are going to have a war, and that's going to be a tough game for them to come out of. And I think kind of like what you were saying, Hector, I just don't know the gauntlet that they run on that side. At some point, at some point, do they run into just tired legs and they just get caught sleeping? I think they have a gauntlet to run into. And if it's the U.S. when we get to the semifinal, you want to talk about what Dallas Stadium is going to look like with the U.S. in a semifinal game and how much of a home field advantage that we will have there. And I think it's going to be a freight train that they can't overcome. I think on the other side of the bracket is where I see some more upsets happening. We got Japan beating Brazil, just like the other 2 guys in this group so far. I think Norway was one of my dark horses. I'm really high on them. I think what they did against France was to protect their confidence. And to
what is your confidence level of them over Ivory Coast? Like,
now,
how
I
confident?
think that's going to be like an easy game. Luckily, I'm getting to go to that game and see it up close and personal. So, I mean, I think that's going to be a really tough game for them. I think Ivory Coast has enough firepower on the other end to counteract them. Mm-hmm. And Norway guys up front, Alana's scary, man. That dude is terrifying to play against in the box, and I think he's the difference maker in that game. But don't get me wrong.
The manager got it right in terms of choosing to sit right for the France match, right?
Yeah.
I hope. Obviously, they know what they're doing, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. Did it kill them to not play in that game, or give them rest? I mean, we've talked about Alon's had some injury issues, so maybe protecting him, protecting the old man Odegaard,
right?
Letting them stay fresh and be ready for this game. So I don't know. I do think that one is a close one, but I do have Norway in that one. I've got Mexico beating Ecuador just because of the fact they're in Azteca, and then England to beat Congo. But I'm telling you, Congo's going to roll out the game plan that Ghana rolled out with, and Ghana played it to perfection. It's, can Congo get anything when we get to extra time? Can they win in PKs? And I think England's going to find a goal there because they're playing indoors. I think that helps them a lot playing in Atlanta. They're not going to play outside. But then when you have them go into Azteca the second round, I didn't pick it here, but I could see Mexico beating England in the second round. It's one of the most exciting games for me. Like I said, round of 16 to watch. That's the one I'm looking at to watch. And then if you move down, Argentina, Cape Verde. I don't know if you guys have seen the news, but all the stuff about Cape Verde right now, and one of their captains, all the charges that are coming up against him. So they're going to have a little bit of craziness going up into the next game. But it's Argentina Invitational on that side until they hit Colombia. So Egypt was again one of my picks early on to kind of make it to that round of 16. So we'll see them beat Australia. Switzerland, Algeria is a toss-up, but I mean Switzerland's got enough firepower to handle that game. And then Colombia and Ghana, which I think will be a closer game than most people think, but I really do like the way that Colombia is playing right now. And so that's why I have them going out to play Argentina. Again, I don't think that game's going to be easy for Argentina and Colombia, but I went ahead and went with Argentina. And then Argentina to beat Norway to go to the final against the U.S. And look, call me a homer, call me what you will, but if the U.S. gets to a final in New York at 3 o'clock on that day, I could see us winning it. The way we're playing right now, the confidence that our starting 11 has right now, the way Pochettino has everybody believing. I mean, obviously, it's something we all would love to see and want to see, but it could happen. And so then I have France and Norway. France winning that game in the third place match. But I'm all in, man.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming majority of high expectation of success expectations for the U.S. is quarterfinals, right? If somehow they FAFO and break through that, then it's house money, right? At that point,
For sure.
I think so. Yeah. So all right, that does it for West. So we move on, and I could get it going here. All right, Brian, you're up, buddy. Take us through your bracket. Point out some key thoughts here.
Oh, I mean, and just like everyone else, I think Germany and France go through quickly and efficiently in the first game. I think Paraguay will give Germany some issues along the ways that Ecuador did, but I think Germany still has the ability to do that. My American patriotism refused to let me root for Jesse Marsh or Canada today, so I'm very disappointed that Bafana couldn't pull that off. Yeah, I was, but I do think the Dutch will win, and I do need the Dutch to win because on July 4th, right there in downtown Houston, we're going to have a giant orange Dutch parade all the way to the stadium like we did a couple weeks ago. And this time I'm actually going to try to find a way to go.
Hey, did you see the onslaught of Jesse Marsh being roasted for coaching in jeans? Did you see that?
Yes, yes.
I was dying laughing. Anyway, sorry.
I had a conversation years ago with a coach about just not being able to respect myself if I lost to a coach wearing jeans. And then he literally came to my place like 2 weeks later wearing jeans and beat the ever living crap out of me. So I was like, I just have no respect for myself.
That's on brand. That's on brand.
I FAO'd on that one.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I think Portugal will get through. And I think that might be a game that goes to penalties. And I don't think it'll be Ronaldo that wins it. I think it'll be someone different. I think Spain gets through Austria. And like everyone else,
I guess I didn't realize I missed you having Portugal over Spain on this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I say I think the U.S. wins. I think Senegal wins. I think the French just have too much up top for the Germans to stop them. I think it'll be a good game, but I think the French do that. I know my grandpa would probably slap me across the face right now for saying that. And then I do have the Dutch going through as well. I think they'll get their run and go like Wes said. I think they're just a very, very complete team, and they looked very solid all the way through the group stage. Portugal. I sat with a couple buddies of mine that are real big Spain fans on Friday night watching that game, and they were just so frustrated with the way Spain played. I think what was it, one shot on target against Uruguay in that game, and really and truly the game should have been a 0-0 had we'd not had a soap hand goalkeeper for Uruguay. That game would have been a 0-0 game, and I just. Watching it, I don't think
I got to see it. I got to see it afterward when you guys were telling me about it, and it was worse than even you guys described it to me.
It was, and I think there are some issues with that Spain team with depth. I don't think from what my friend told me, he's heard from some people over in Spain, and they're saying Nico Williams won't play anymore in this World Cup. And then you had the other guy, Jeremy Pena. He probably will not play anymore in this World Cup. So then now you start looking at some depth issues for them up top. So I think that's what gives Portugal the opportunity to get through. I think we're able to beat Senegal. I think the Dutch knock off the French. Like I said, I just think that's going to be a great game, and it may come down to individual mistakes and individual pieces of brilliance. It might be a 5-4 kind of game, but I think the Dutch are able to pull that one off. And then I take the U.S. over Portugal. Like I said, in a quarterfinal, with that game being in Los Angeles, you're going to have the stars out. You're going to have Ronaldo versus the U.S., and I think the U.S. is just going to be on such a high that they're going to be able to push through that game. But then when they run into the Dutch, I think that's that game where, hey, we pulled it off. We beat Portugal. We're in the semifinals, and we just kind of we run into a team that's complete, and we just we run out of deals, and it may be cards, it may be suspensions, it may be something like that that takes us out. But I see the Dutch getting through to the final. On the other side, I think the Brazilians beat Japan, and I think it's because I think Brazil just has more players that are capable of individual brilliance up top. I think you're gonna. I think you're gonna see something. I watched the Spain or the Sweden Japan game the other night before the U.S. game, and just the individual brilliance from Alanga. And I think Sweden also had several other chances where they could have scored. So I think Brazil gets them there.
Where can somebody look up? Where is that match? That Brazil-Japan match?
That game's in Houston. And it's less than $1,000 right now for tickets.
Japan's pretty much. Japan's
Tickets
pretty
are
much
now down
set
to
up camp.
927 this afternoon is when I checked.
Japan has
That-
pretty much set up camp in Texas, right? I think they
Yeah.
had one game and was in Monterrey, I think, and have played everything. Will have played everything else in Texas. So interesting.
Yeah, and then I think the Ivory Coast is. I kind of think they're one of my dark horses in this thing. I think they're gonna be able to outrun Norway and get the win there. As much as I liked watching Mexico so far, I think their run-ins against Ecuador. I think if there was any teams that Mexico did not want to see in the round of 32, it was a team like an Ecuador, who is okay playing at altitude. They can match them, and I think the intensity wise, I think the difference in that game will be a guy like Casado running the midfield there.
It's going to be a classic Copa Libertadores kind of match, man.
Absolutely, and I think England. Well, like Wes said, I think England just finds a way to get a goal, whether it's in regulation or in extra time. In the Argentina Invitational side of the bracket, I think Argentina wins that one. Egypt, Australia. I took Australia in that game because I watched the last 15 minutes of that Egypt Iran game, and Egypt looked absolutely terrible. I mean, they had no ideas going forward. It was like they were almost every time they got the ball, it was just kick it as far as they could up the field. They ran out of ideas. I think Australia is willing to let them do that, have the ball, kick it up, and then catch them on the counter, especially with the guys they have up top. I think Switzerland knocks off Algeria. Colombia knocks off Ghana. Colombia and Argentina run through, and then I think the game of the tournament will be Brazil and the Ivory Coast. I think that game has the possibilities to be just an absolute, an end-to-end kind of match. And I think Brazil's able to get the win there. I think Ecuador beats England in the Aztec. I think the altitude is too much for England, and then the hype that always surrounds England. Just let them know it's not coming home again. So, Ecuador will take care of that one. And then literally you have the CONMEBOL quarterfinals and semifinals with Brazil beating Ecuador, Argentina beating Colombia, and then I've got Argentina beating Brazil. And then Messi getting to lift his second trophy over the Dutch, and then the U.S. beating a Brazil team that at that point really doesn't care anymore because they're not playing in the finals. So the U.S. will finish third.
Awesome. So yeah, I didn't even catch that the first time. You got an all, man. That's basically the South American Invitational is what that is on your right side there.
Absolutely.
Interesting stuff. So good deal. That does it for Brian Heyman. Thanks, buddy. All right, Rafa, take us through, man.
So my list, just trying to get my little thing here so I can see it a little bit bigger. Okay, hold on a second. So on the left side, like I said, I have Germany over Paraguay. Tough game, but I think Germany has enough. France, Sweden should be that one will be another fun one, but France just has too much power. Picking Netherlands over Morocco, it's gonna be a tight game. Now that game's in Monterrey. It's gonna be hot, so it's up Morocco's alley. Is Netherlands well conditioned? Because I know they've been playing indoors. The heat in Monterrey could affect them there. Like I said, I would not be surprised maybe Morocco pulls off the upset, but I'm still going to give the edge to Netherlands because they've been playing well. Portugal should get by Croatia. I think their midfield is just a little bit better than what Croatia has. So it'll be Modric's last hurrah. Spain should take care of Austria. The U.S. should get by Bosnia, but one thing with the U.S., they've had that mental block with the European teams. They haven't been a European team since 2021. I think it ends here. They'll get by Bosnia. And then I'll have Belgium over Senegal. I know a lot of people are favoring Senegal, but I think Belgium, they're old. I think still have enough to have experience. I think they've been here in these wars, so they know how to prepare, and they'll on to the second round. Next one, I have Germany and France. The key thing with Germany, they lost their best defender. And I don't know if everyone in the back four from Germany can stop what France has up top. So, you pick your poison, Dembele, Mbappe. We say, yeah, it's going to be tough for them. Netherlands should cruise against Canada. The Portugal-Spain one, that's a little tight one. I give the edge to Spain. But if I'm Roberto Martinez, I sit out Ronaldo and I have him come in as a sub. I think if they can, maybe if Portugal does that, they get a lead, then bring in Ronaldo to kind of finish that. Maybe they'll be fair for that game. And then I have Belgium over the U.S. I think when the U.S. plays these elite European teams, that they get a mental block, and you've seen it the last few times. And I think remember they have already faced each other. And Belgium really didn't bring their A team. I know the US didn't bring it either, but still, there's just something when they play these type. I think this is probably going to be the game of the knockout state. Before the final, France and Netherlands going to be. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, but I'm going to give the edge to France, and then I think Spain will just have a little too much over Belgium. Then get them to the final, get to the semifinals, and then I think the semifinal there. I think everyone's kind of expecting should be a fun one. I think just France just has a little too much, so I'm going to give the edge to France and get them to the final. The other side of the bracket, I'm going to give the edge on that one on Brazil. I think here's the thing, Vinny Jr.'s been kind of playing great. Is quietly. He hasn't really had that much of the attention. He's actually been behaving, not bringing a lot of that controversy like he did at Real Madrid. So, like I said, he's one of the top scorers. So I think he's going to give a lot of fits to Japan. Ivory Coast and Norway, I think that's going to be a fun game. But I'm going to give the edge to Norway. I think they just have a little too much up top. I know there are a lot of people thinking Ecuador. I don't think Mexico's afraid of Ecuador. They'll take care of business. Ecuador just doesn't scare me. They don't have much of an offense. And if they want to try to play a low block there, go ahead. Mexico's going to go after them. And I think, like I said, they're going to feed off the crowd and they'll get that win. England should take care of business with Congo. I don't think they should have any problems with them. Argentina, same thing with Cape Verde, should advance. Australia, Egypt could be a toss-up, but I think Egypt has just a little bit more than Australia, so they'll advance. Switzerland should take care of Algeria. Colombia's got a little, I guess, a tough one with Ghana. Ghana's very fast, but I think Colombia just has enough, especially how the way they played yesterday. They should advance to the next round. Brazil, Norway, I think that's going to be a fun one to watch. But I think when you have Carlo Ancelotti as your head coach, I think he finds a way and gets them to the next round. My heart's with Mexico on this one. But like I said, I still have to give the edge to England. I think they just have a little bit more.
Yeah, that should be England there. A little bit of a typo there. But yeah, in the next round.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, so England, like I said, I think they have just a little bit. Like I said, Harry Kane's been playing great. Jude Bellingham. If Mexico can kind of shut them down, and then maybe, hopefully, maybe the altitude kind of gets to them. Maybe they have a shot. Maybe take them to PKs. Who knows? So, but I'm going to give England the edge to advance. Argentina should have no problem with Egypt, and then Colombia. competitive game against Switzerland, but they'll advance. And then my quarters, Brazil, England. I think England just has a little too much. I think they're deep. And then Argentina, Colombia. Colombia is going to be wanting revenge from that loss to the Copa America. It's going to be a fun one. I can see that game go to extra time, but I think Argentina just has just a little bit more depth than Colombia, so that advance. And then have England and Argentina kind of the rematch of the '86 quarterfinal, since it's the 40th anniversary of the Mano de Dios. I think Argentina advances, and then we'll have a France-Argentina final for the third place game. I think England gets a third place on that. I think they outlast Spain, and then in the final, I just think France just has a lot. I know it's going to running the gauntlet for them. I think they just have enough. They're a very complete team, and I think they're the one team that I think they can beat Argentina. So I have France winning the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Get some revenge.
Yeah. You have England winning the third place match. So yeah, everybody talks about the 40-year anniversary of the hand of God, but it's also the dissection of Maradona, right? Because he also tore England apart. No one tends to talk about that one.
Yeah,
as the hand of God, but same match, same match. But yeah, so great stuff, Rafa. All right, we got one left. Mike, you're up. Take us through your key games, your thoughts.
So mine's kind of straightforward. I think if you just look at the front runners, so to speak, right? That's probably a little bit more how mine's going to look. So I do expect Germany to take care of business in that first round match. And actually, I was at the Netherlands, Sweden, and for what I saw there and the firepower that obviously the Dutch bring when they play, France obviously can match that, if not surpass it. So I'm going with France there. Had Canada today, I'll take that. Really impressed with the Netherlands from what I saw and the way they've been playing. Portugal, I think that one is a tricky one. I think they'll get it done though. Spain, I had in my in my original bracket going all the way, so I haven't taken care of business there. U.S. and then Belgium, Senegal. I went back and forth on that one quite a bit, but call it. I want the rematch from the friendly that we had where we took a thumping recently, and so I had Belgium going through there. France, obviously, having them going all the way. So taking care of business against Germany won't be easy. The Netherlands, same. Lots of firepower. I think they'll kind of roll there. And then we'll go with Spain. I had Spain here, just kind of keeping with my theme of what my original pick was. And then that opportunity, right? I know neither side brought their A teams, but still, it's in the back of your mind. It's on home soil. Give me a little bit of the mental edge, and as you guys have talked about, the legs and the age of Belgium, have the U.S. getting it done. I think that France-Netherlands match in the quarterfinals, if we get it, is going to be amazing. Still going with France, and then Spain over the U.S. I think that's where the run ends, but it would be quite a run if we get there. I'd love to see it. France getting to the finals from this side of the bracket. My boys are headed to Brazil and Japan. So I went with Brazil on that one. Again, I think that one could kind of go either way, just a little bit, thinking maybe Brazil's got enough to get them over the edge. Norway against in their match. And then Ecuador and Mexico. Sorry, Rafa. I'm going with Ecuador on that one. It'd be so hard for me to pick Mexico. England, I'll take against Congo. And then the bottom half of this bracket just sets up completely for Argentina and Colombia straight through to the quarters. So not a lot really for me to talk about there. Brazil, I think they're headed to the quarters over Norway as well. And then England finding a way to get it done against Ecuador. So then that gives me Brazil making it to the semis against Argentina. Again, I think that Argentina-Colombia matchup is going to be absolutely fantastic to watch. And then the rematch of Argentina and France. And I just think it's a lot to ask to go back to back. I certainly think Argentina could do it, but give me France there and then Spain for third.
Gotcha. Yeah, interesting stuff. I could see that there's definitely, you can see moments where you can make the argument those are the two most dominant teams, right, in terms of display through the group stage, right? So, yeah, wouldn't put it past that where we could get a rematch of the 22 epic match, which is still, I think, the most highly rated, most viewed game in history, right? So, all right, so that does it for our. We take it through our bracketology picks, and here's how it breaks down. So our champions selected by country. So we had two selecting France, two selecting Spain, and our reigning world champion Argentina one selection, and the good old red, white, and blue with one selection. Thoughts on this, guys?
You're welcome. I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a lot of the people that you would expect. It's a lot of pre-tournament favorites as well.
Yeah, yeah,
I
Yeah, I
just
think, you know,
I think we're just going to see something different. It's being in the Western Hemisphere, the expanded tournament format. If it's not the U.S., I just feel like we're going to get someone in the final that's not one of the favorites. I just feel like something crazy is going to happen.
Yeah, I do think there'll be some interesting results. I don't know where it's going to happen, but the pre-tournament favorites are pre-tournament favorites for a reason. It makes a lot of sense that the picks went the way they did from this group.
So when you look at this, is there a pick? Is there a match where maybe you picked one way, but you're part of you were what was maybe the match you were the most gut torn on? That could be very much the opposite of what you picked. Is there one, maybe, Elias?
yeah, I mean, I think, the Netherlands could. I picked Morocco to make it to the semifinals. I could see the Netherlands knocking them off. Obviously, I think France. I would not be surprised if they won the whole thing, but something tells me that they are going to have one game where their stars just can't find the back of the net and they're going to lose. Just like you talked about the gauntlet. Something's going to happen somewhere, and they're going to have to rely on other ways other than just steamrolling you. And I don't know that they are a team that's going to grind out a result. But that being said, they could go through and win every game 3-0 if they're up for the challenge, right? So, I picked France to lose in this round of 16. That's probably a very unpopular pick, but I mean, I could see them going all the way. Brazil, with Vinny, yeah, they could go through. Mexico, I could see them making the quarterfinals. And then, Colombia, I could see after watching Colombia last night. Now, they seem to really, really be up for that game. And I don't know what it was about that particular game, but that was a team that just looked possessed. And if you get that version of Colombia in the heat, like you're toast. Yeah,
Which I believe they wouldn't need much motivation to get up for Argentina.
Yeah,
I really don't. Right?
absolutely. So,
Because the incentive there, every team that comes up against Argentina is, hey, could we potentially be retiring the GOAT here, right? If he doesn't come back, right?
yep.
Could we beat him? Could we knock him out and retire him, right? Same thing with Ronnie on the other side of the bracket. So that'll be the interesting piece here. So here's the question, right, for everybody. What do you trust more? Do you trust the battle hardened path that gauntlet that France was going to have to go through, or the couple of JV matches Argentina has and not tested until at least the quarterfinal, and that's including the group stage, and then all of a sudden they have to kick it into another gear. Reigning world champion or not, what do you trust more?
I'll take the right side of the bracket every day.
Yep,
I mean,
I would.
I mean, like I'm not, and this is not an Argentina team or a Brazil team or whatever. That these players are used to playing in high pressure situations, week in, week out, right? Like Argentina, it's like Atletico Madrid plus Messi, right? So, those guys show up every day, and they are not. I don't think that switch is going to be hard, and for them to flip. Whereas on the left-hand side of the bracket, one moment can send you home before you really have a chance. I would take the right-hand side, and you're fresher in a final after. Like whoever gets to the final from that left-hand side of the bracket, they are going to be beat up. Now they're going to be high on confidence, right? Whoever gets there is probably going to feel pretty good about winning their chances after all of it. But, you're talking about 4-5 games that you have to beat somebody really freaking good.
I think what you
I
also
just
need to look at it is cards. You know, how are cards going to come into this? Who's going to be available in matches?
Correct.
You know, if you're in those battles, you know, on that left side where you're going through that gauntlet of Germany, France, Holland, Spain, the United States, you know, I mean, you may get into a semifinal, but missing three guys or missing two guys. You know, especially if one of those games gets into extra time and it's just a slugfest. I think Argentina and Brazil have that luxury where I don't think they will have as many slugfest coming. I think that top half of that right side of the bracket will be very tough with Brazil and Ivory Coast, Norway, whoever comes out of that game, and then England and then Mexico, Ecuador. There's going to be some tough games, but I think Argentina is going to have a very comfortable run getting all the way to Colombia. And then what do they have compared to what does Colombia have? I mean, Colombia plays with a lot of emotion. Can you play with emotion, or can you play emotionally in that kind of game there? You've talked about it earlier. You know, what team keeps their cool? What team keeps their composure and doesn't have a player lose their head like Uruguay did on Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, and if they run through, if they have to go through, if Argentina, that is, if they have to go through a Colombia in a quarterfinal, and let's just say somehow a Brazil, right? In so South American, fellow foes that aren't scared of them one bit, that know how to play them very well. They're just as much battle tested. They have just as many, stars, if you will. Um, that's where they finally. That's what I'm saying. It's like, can we know they're capable of it, but it's like, will it be there when they have to, when they have to hit the switch, right? So that'll
Yeah,
be
and
the interesting piece.
I think that's a great point, Hector. Like, everyone's talking about, I think I've heard it 5 times already. Like, it's the Argentina Invitational. But I mean, when you think about previous World Cups, right? Round of 16. You would pick Argentina in every other World Cup to win their round of 16 game. And then when you get to the quarterfinal, Argentina versus Colombia, that's a really good game. That's number 1 versus number 9 in the world. Then you get to a semifinal game, and it's probably Argentina versus Brazil. And I would imagine Brazil is ranked pretty high. So, the quarterfinal, semifinal, like, you are going to have to beat 2 really good teams. That I think that if you switch them around on the other side and you had, Argentina versus France in a quarterfinal on the left-hand side, that's a toss-up the same way it is on the right-hand side. So, I think that there are more teams, yes, on the left-hand side, but once you get to the quarterfinals, which when we know that the tournament really, really, like, that's when you get down to these are the true candidates to win the tournament. When you get to the quarterfinals on both sides of the bracket, I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference between the 8 teams in the quarterfinals. So,
Agree. And and what it's going to have to come down to is depth, right? Whether it be through injury, whether it be through the conditions, stadium conditions, whatever you're playing in, whatever you're accustomed to or not accustomed to, and then cards, right? Brian mentioned it earlier as well. Cards, so it is going to be, it's a battle of attrition. That's, in the end, that's what separate. I think that's what makes this France team so highly formidable, right? In terms of their depth, right? Do I question their back line? Do I question their defense? Yeah, that's where my question is with them when it comes to going through that gauntlet, right? So, but then you look at who are probably the most banged up teams right now coming into this stage. You can make the argument for Spain. You can make the argument for maybe Germany. I'm missing one, I think.
England has both right backs out.
England, yeah, England's the other one, right? So there are, there are some questions there in terms of depth, right? That's probably the only thing that's potentially holding them back, particularly when you talk. And those are the 2 that I have in the final, right? Is Spain and England, right? So pretty interesting stuff. So thoughts on that in terms of the battle of attrition, guys? Last thoughts.
I think one key factor of the games is who makes mistakes in a game. Like, you go down a man, how do you adjust to that? How do you overcome that? And we've seen that in World Cups past. That's been an affects a game and a winner. So that's something to kind of keep on. Who has the discipline to not get a red card early on and so forth.
Anything to add, guys? Anything else?
I'll tell you, final thoughts for me. I'm going to take you back to the 2002 World Cup. All right. We know the U.S., that was their best tournament they've ever had, right? We got all the way to the quarterfinals. But there was another team in that tournament. It was a host nation that made a run, and that was South Korea. I mean, they played Poland, beat them 2-0 in the group stage. They tied the U.S. 1-1, and then went on and beat Portugal 1-0, and then went to the round of 16, beat Italy 2-1. They beat Spain 5-3 in penalties, even though it was super controversial. And then they played Germany in the semifinals, which we could all argue that maybe Germany didn't even deserve to be there. If we had VAR back then, U.S. could have been in that spot. But they made that run deep into that tournament and showed well for themselves as a host nation. I think that's something that we could see here, and I think the hype train only gets louder with every round that we win. So that's
Wasn't it
why.
Klinsman? Didn't Klinsman have the game winner in that one? Was it Klinsman?
I don't know.
Germany?
No, it was Michael Ballack had the game winner.
I looked at that one.
Right here. You got it.
But if you go back to that
No.
2002 World Cup, South Korea benefited from a whole lot of controversial decisions. Portugal went down to 9 men in that game. The game against Italy went down to 9 men, I believe, and one of them was on a diving call against Byron Moreno, the Ecuadorian referee who was banned by FIFA shortly after for match fixing. So that World Cup there. The story of Byron Moreno is hilarious. But South Korea benefited from a whole lot of from questionable refereeing decisions, and why can't we benefit from some questionable refereeing decisions in this World Cup? I mean, VAR has proven that they will gladly go to sleep at certain times, or they're probably watching The Simpsons at some other times. So because I mean, we can rule a Colombian goal offside for a toe. We can catch that, but we cannot catch Lionel Messi stamping the back of an Algerian's calf full on.
They have been consistent about that the whole tournament.
They've been consistently inconsistent.
You show me where they've given a red card for that, and I'll give you $100 in this tournament.
It's true. They have not come back.
Show me where they've given a red card for that, and I will Venmo you $100 right now.
All right, I'm on it. I will have my Cook Island staff on it.
That's such horse crap, man.
My backroom staff at Scotland and South Korea Mercenary FC. We're gonna get on it. I will send it to you. Hey, LS.
There was one supposed handball picture, I think, in the Argentina match yesterday. Did you see that one floating around? That they called that apparently was missed. I'd have to see exactly when it was. I don't know, but yeah, that's the thing that's floating around, right? With just the.
But Heyman, I do agree with you. That should have been a yellow card.
Well, see, Messi did it, and he set the tone for the whole tournament. Because now FIFA's like, oh, we can't give a red card for that, because then they'll question whether we should have given a red card to Lionel Messi. So now it is perfectly fair and legal. You can clearly stamp on the back of someone's leg, full force. It's perfectly okay, because Messi did it first.
Well, he did get praised for pressing, right? I think it was the shock of the fact that he was defending. That's what it was.
He should just start scoring. He should have scored the goal against Portugal yesterday. That way, they would have called it off onside.
Absolutely.
And then that way, they don't have to call it the rest of the way. So
it
sounds like the only Heyman, what you're saying to me right now. It sounds like the only person that can save soccer is Messi, is what you're telling me.
Well,
we're gonna do what he wants to do.
Him and myself both are pretty much the only two that can save it, because when we get the Cook Islands into the into the 128 team World Cup next time around, we're going to show you guys what miracles are all about.
All right, so a kind of brief look. So I did mention yesterday, I think it was DraftKings top 10 odds. I didn't break down the odds, but there was the top 10 countries with the best odds to win the World Cup. There was 6 European teams, 3 South American teams, and 1 CONCACAF nation, and that CONCACAF nation was not Mexico. So do with that what you will. So I don't know what the odds were today, but then, so one of the analytics breakdown in terms of probability to win the World Cup going into the start of the knockout rounds here. So Argentina 1, Spain 2, France 3, England 4, Germany 5. Germany and Brazil just won't go away, man. Germany and Brazil. But the drop-off is significant after France. It's Argentina, Spain, France, and then you see a big initial drop with England, and then after England, it's a huge drop-off. So after England, it's Germany, Brazil, and then Colombia, then the Netherlands, Morocco, Switzerland. I think that takes us to the top 10. Then you have Portugal at 11 and the United States at 12, with Norway and Mexico right behind them, and then Ecuador. So that rounds out your top 15. And in case you're wondering, so Argentina, probability of winning 16.9%. That 15th place country, Ecuador, 1.6% chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. So, all right. So final thoughts, guys. Up to this point, World Cup, has it been a success? How big of a success? Has it maybe up to this point surpassed your expectations?
I think the best part of it so far is just all the stories of everybody who's come over from different parts of the world and their experiences. That's obviously off the field stuff, but like that's a really good story about this World Cup. Is just how everybody's really enjoyed their time here in the U.S.
Yeah,
Because don't believe the news and what the news tells you. Come experience it for yourself, and that doesn't just stand for us here in the U.S., but even going over to Europe and different places, traveling the world, seeing different cultures. Man, we're not so different from each other.
no, everyone wants a good game, a good beer, and good people. That's what
right.
you want. I mean, you don't need anything else.
Yeah. All the foreigners I've interacted with, I just try to keep them away from Brian Heyman, and we'll be okay. Man, we'll get it. We'll be okay. So, Rafa.
That's why you're my second favorite, Hector.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. So I'm only cool when I'm asleep, as some people say. So Rafa, Brian, final thoughts.
It's just been, like I said, it's been a great World Cup, great storylines.
Has it been better than you thought up to this point?
Well, especially with a lot of the teams, like stories like Cape Verde, Congo. I think those are some good. Those are kind of the Cinderella stories that you're looking for. Kind of what Morocco did the last World Cup. We're still waiting to see one of those two be the next Morocco. You're down to have one of those Cinderella teams that make some type of magical run. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I was thinking too. Is like, who's going to be that team that's gonna make the deep run that is a little bit off the radar? Obviously, Hart says hope it's the U.S. going in. A lot of people had Ecuador. Is really why I picked them over Mexico in the first round. But like, who's it going to be? That you hope you see that, because that always adds another level to it.
I mean, I would not be surprised to see both the U.S. and Mexico in the semifinals or quarterfinals on each of their sides of the bracket. So
Can you imagine that? That would be insane. Semifinals would be insane.
Semifinal, insane.
A U.S.-Canada semifinal would be absolutely insane.
gosh.
I mean,
Is that
we would not be
for the
able-
right? Is that for the right to make Canada the 51st state? Is that what we would?
Well, I
plan
mean,
on? Or
this
what?
might be Canada's last World Cup. I mean, because once they become the 51st state, they're all going to be part of us anyway. So, I mean, I hope Jesse Marsh takes them as far as they can. So when we annex them, they don't. He's got to go. His head won't be big enough to fit back in the United States if they get to the semifinals.
So winner of that one is Jesse Marsh has to coach the rest of his career in Pochettino Dickey's gear, and if not, Poch has to coach in jeans the rest of his career. So one or the other. Just saying. So that is going to do it for episode. I was going to say wrong episode number. Episode 12 of the Red, White, and Crew podcast. Really appreciate everybody jumping on here. Thank you, the chat. Ken, really appreciate you as well. Hope you're enjoying the World Cup, everybody.
Ken, that would be a final USA versus Mexico in New Jersey, New York. That's how they would
Jersey,
be.
East Rutherford, everything.
And that may set off some seismic earthquakes if that was the final.
That would be every bit as big as Portugal, Argentina. Have we had that? Now that's the only other way they could meet. Now is in the final. So just saying. So we'll see what we are in store for. But lots of fun. Thank you for being with us again for episode 12. Go on there, like, rate, subscribe. Join us on our YouTube channel, which is since we are part of the 50/50 Podcast Network, you can find us on the 50_50 podcast on YouTube. Go on there, like, rate, subscribe, like this video. That keeps us heavy in the algorithm as we look to build this new podcast. So, hey, we finally made history, guys. It took us 12 episodes, but we finally got the whole crew here. So appreciate all you guys. Thank you. And you know what to do for all our listeners, all our supporters. Go on there. Follow us on social media as well. But until the next, we will be coming to you soon with preview episodes of the upcoming matches. Got to talk to Rafa about Mexico, but definitely one for the U.S. in the coming days. So you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.